What if I told you the most trusted man on Wall Street was running the biggest lie in financial history? December 11th, 2008. Bernie Madoff, former NASDAQ chairman, Wall Street legend, the man everyone wanted to invest with, is arrested in his Manhattan penthouse. The charge? Operating a $65 billion Ponzi scheme. For 20 years, he fooled Nobel Prize winners, Hollywood celebrities, and hedge fund giants. His secret? There were no investments, no trades, no genius strategy, just a spreadsheet, and the biggest lie ever told. This is the Capital Files, and today we're opening the classified files on the $65 billion lie. Bernie Madoff didn't start as a criminal mastermind. Born in Queens in 1938, he began trading stocks with $5,000 saved from working as a lifeguard and sprinkler installer. By 1960, he'd founded Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities with his wife Ruth. What made Madoff different wasn't brilliance, it was patience. He spent decades building something money couldn't buy: trust. By the 1980s, Madoff was NASDAQ chairman. He pioneered electronic trading. He sat on industry boards, donated to charities, belonged to exclusive country clubs. When Bernie Madoff spoke, Wall Street listened. Here's what made Madoff's operation genius-level evil. He didn't chase clients. They chased him. The strategy was pure psychology. Madoff's funds were invitation only. You couldn't just call and invest, you needed connections. Country club members whispered about their guy who delivered consistent returns. Wealthy Jewish families passed his name like a family recipe. The message was clear. If you're not with Bernie, you're missing out. Year after year, Madoff delivered impossible consistency. 10 to 12% annual returns, regardless of market conditions. While the S&P 500 crashed in 2000 to 2002, Madoff's clients saw steady gains. While markets soared in 2007, Madoff delivered steady gains. His claimed strategy? Split strike conversion, a complex options technique that sounded sophisticated enough to impress, boring enough that few questioned it. The reality? There was no strategy. There were no trades. Madoff was simply using new investors' money to pay existing investors, the classic Ponzi scheme. But unlike typical Ponzi operators who promise unrealistic 20 to 30% returns, Madoff was smart. His returns were impressive but believable. The man running the world's largest financial fraud was simultaneously serving as an industry regulator. Madoff helped write the rules he was breaking. He advised the SEC on market regulation while defrauding investors under their noses. Talk about hiding in plain sight. Harry Markopolos, a financial analyst from Boston, figured it out in 1999. After studying Madoff's returns for 4 hours, he concluded it was mathematically impossible. Markopolos didn't just suspect fraud, he proved it. He calculated that Madoff claimed to be trading more options than actually existed in the entire market. His memo to the SEC was titled, "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud." The SEC's response? They ignored him for 9 years. The warning signs weren't subtle, they were neon billboards. Accounting firm Freeling and Horowitz operated out of a strip mall with 3 employees. They were auditing a $65 billion investment empire. Custody. Madoff held all client assets himself. A massive regulatory violation returns. 87% positive months over 17 years. Statistically impossible. Strategy opacity. No one could explain how split strike conversion worked so consistently. But wealthy clients didn't want explanations. They wanted returns. Skepticism was bad for business. By 2008, Madoff's operation had grown too large to sustain. He needed $7 billion in annual new investments just to pay existing clients. When the financial crisis hit, redemption requests poured in. For the first time in decades, Madoff faced a problem he couldn't solve with charm and fabricated statements. December 10, 2008. Madoff called his sons Mark and Andrew into his office. Both worked at the firm's legitimate market-making business. What he told them destroyed their lives forever. It's all been one big lie. The investment advisory business is a giant Ponzi scheme. Mark and Andrew reported their father to federal authorities that night. Less than 24 hours later, FBI agents were at Bernie Madoff's door. The moment everything collapsed when Madoff was arrested. The immediate question wasn't whether it was fraud, it was how big the fraud was. Initial estimates suggested $50 billion in losses. The final tally was even worse. $65 billion in claimed investments, with approximately $18 billion in actual cash losses. One man's lie had just become the world's biggest margin call. The Madoff client list read like a who's who of American elite. Elie Wiesel Foundation lost $15.2 million meant for Holocaust education. Steven Spielberg's Wunderkinder Foundation lost millions in charitable funds. Hadassah Women's Organization lost $90 million in donations. But the real tragedy wasn't just the famous names. Madoff's fraud didn't just hit billionaires. It destroyed thousands of ordinary families. Middle-class retirees who lost their life savings and had to return to work in their 70s. College students whose parents could no longer afford tuition. Small charities that simply closed their doors forever. These weren't just numbers on a ledger. They were real people who trusted the wrong man with their futures, their children's educations, and their golden years. Bernie Madoff's confession didn't just destroy his clients, it destroyed his family. His wife Ruth became a social pariah, forced to liquidate assets and live in exile. The family name became synonymous with fraud. The cruelest irony? Mark and Andrew Madoff, the sons who reported their father, faced constant accusations of complicity. Mark couldn't handle the pressure. On December 11, 2010, exactly 2 years after his father's arrest, Mark Madoff took his own life. Bernie Madoff stole $65 billion, but his most devastating theft was his own son's future. June 29, 2009. At age 71, Bernie Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison, effectively a life sentence. Judge Denny Chin called his crimes extraordinarily evil. Madoff's response was typically self-serving. "I have left a legacy of shame, as some of my victims have pointed out, to my family and my grandchildren. This is something I will live in for the rest of my life." Irving Picard, the court-appointed trustee, has recovered approximately $14.4 billion of the $18 billion in actual losses, an unprecedented recovery rate for such a massive fraud. But money can't restore destroyed relationships, broken trust, or lost lives. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the Madoff scandal wasn't the fraud itself, it was how easily preventable it was. The sector received multiple detailed warnings and chose to ignore them. Basic due diligence would have exposed the scheme in hours. The question isn't how Madoff fooled so many people. The question is why so many people chose to be fooled. Madoff's success wasn't built on superior returns, it was built on superior psychology. He understood that wealthy people don't just want money. They want exclusivity, status, and the feeling of being smarter than everyone else. The most dangerous phrase in investing isn't guaranteed returns, it's invitation only. And perhaps the most unsettling truth, it didn't start as a $65 billion fraud. It started as a single decision he couldn't undo. From crypto schemes promising guaranteed yields to social media influencers peddling investment courses, the Madoff playbook lives on. The technology changes, but human psychology remains depressingly consistent. Bernie Madoff died in prison in April 2021, taking many secrets with him. But his greatest revelation was this: trust without verification isn't just dangerous, it's deadly. The most sophisticated investors in the world were defeated not by complex financial engineering, but by their own assumptions about status, success, and safety. The files on Bernie Madoff remind us that the biggest frauds don't hide in complexity. They hide in plain sight, wrapped in respectability and trust. This has been the Capital Files. If this story revealed how the same human patterns repeat across centuries, hit that like button. Subscribe to the Capital Files for more stories that connect history's dots. And tell us in the comments, was Madoff a criminal mastermind or just another chapter in humanity's endless greed story? Check out our previous episode on Tulip Mania to see how this same psychology played out 400 years ago. Because apparently, we never learn.